Well, good morning, everybody. I'd like to turn in your Bible. That we don't always do what we should. We ask you, please, to help us to correct those things in our life that we need to correct. Give us strength, give us wisdom, give us your wonderful, wise guidance. History, and this is pretty much what kingdom, and as her original name, women that were came the queen, the ancient way of and guide, and advanced him and established his authority over all the princes who were with him. All the king's servants to see whether Mordecai reasoned with rage. Jews. There's a certain people scattered and dispersed among the peoples in all the provinces of your kingdom. Their laws are different from those of other people. They do not observe the king's laws. So it is not in the king's interest to let them remain. If it is pleasing to the king, let children in one day, how the king and Haman sat down to drink. The city of Susa was in confusion. So, as I mentioned before, the king had commanded that everyone should bow down to Haman. And of course, Haman is not going to be living in the palace. He's going to be living off-site. And so every day, Haman had a commute, right? And not just like a gate you might conceive of, perhaps in like trees that are kind of facing each other, kind of like what I've got up there. And you would end up coming in through this direction and then into the palace area. Oftentimes, this is where, I don't know, government business was actually conducted in your house in order for business to be transacted. You might recall maybe the story of Ruth. For the real closest Redeemer came in through, he could stop him and say, so are you served therefore as witnesses to the transaction that he was taking over as the Redeemer. He was going to take Ruth as wife, etc., etc. And so the reason I just point this out, whenever he ends up fighting, he normally went. So all that is said, simply, if you don't stop ignoring the king's order, you're going to also aware that in kind of a no-win situation. How much useful question. So what is the deal here? Number one, why is it that Mordecai is not bowing to Haman?
We all remember the story of King Saul and his command to destroy and so forth. Haman is a descendant
toward anyone.
Bow down to King Nebuchadnezzar's.
You're absolutely correct, and that's actually what I was going to. And the king was like super duper impressed on the altar to say Caesar is Lord, and the reason was because they had learned a long time ago that these Jewish guys, troubles of Rome, were good to go, and Babylon kind of felt the same way. As long as they're good citizens, we can exempt them from some things. Verse 4 again, to see whether Mordecai's reason, what reason would that be?
He was Jewish.
Yeah, that he was Jewish. Haman was a little bit on the fuzzy side about exactly what should be going on here. There apparently was some sort of an exemption for Jews, but Haman is clearly not wanting to do what everyone else is doing of Mordecai were. So what does Haman decide to do instead? He's not just going to make it about Mordecai. He's going to make it about all. I don't know that for absolute certain, but it was so. So this is what his solution is. He goes to cast a lot. Verse 7 talks. What is a lot, by the way? Other than what you would build your building on.
Coin, head or tail, really. It was theoretically a magical, if you please,
Yeah,
way of learning what your conduct.
sort of ultimately, or so he's framing things in this way. You know, King Xerxes, there are some trouble. You've already had to depose Vashti, right, because she wasn't particularly obedient. You know, we can't let these people also kind of cause of the Persians. If we do, then there's going to be other people that are going to want to do the same thing. So here's my proposal. My proposal is that we're going to allow there to be an open season on them, and that anyone in the kingdom can come and kill. What does this end up saying, by the way? And it's that before being to pay the king, and apparently the king even this signet ring basically is his authority. Anything with his. What is a signet ring, by the way? What's it used for? This isn't something we do these days. Something that you would end. Haman had wanted him to do so. Motto the empire, and just to work to the other side. Probably one day is what it was going to. A year. They sometimes ended up having 13, depending on which system you're looking at. They sometimes had 13. Not seen it, but I know what it's about. Yeah.
One day, and then everyone's allowed to
Yeah.
kill each other and steal all their money, so just kind of
So
steal all their money, so just kind of.
so this is sort of a Jewish purge. Yeah. 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 I think I'd be kind of tempted to see if I could go to exactly
What's this all about?
revenge. And what was Haman striving for? Revenge. And what was Haman striving for?
He's getting revenge.
He's getting for justice.
He's getting revenge.
He's getting for justice. What's justice?
It's really
Sure.
kind of back to that either.
It's probably, that's a good question. The scripture doesn't say, but,
And it probably wouldn't have been a big deal. Hey,
well, yeah,
I've been appointed second command, so King, you need to have the people.
doesn't it? Because actually, what time it is, it just ruins it all. None of those things just mean anything to me anymore. Sometimes so don't we. We have all these blessings, and some little nit ends up bugging us about something because of ego or pride. Again, just some other lessons just to think about. As Christians, we're expected to be different, and the world is going to do whatever it can to try. Christians need to become a Nicolaitan, right? We've been studying the book of Revelation, which Nicolaitans were all about compromise, right? Yeah. Yeah, and you know, this ends up being pretty much what Paul was talking about, right, in Romans chapter 12, verses 1 and 2, where he says, don't be conformed to this world, but be what? Transformed by the renewing of your mind above all of that. What the bad guys are intending to do, but now what's God going to do about it? And that's what chapter